The grand chandelier above the Helix Grand lobby cast its golden glow across polished marble and whispered wealth. Bellhops moved in practiced silence. A pianist played something soft and expensive. No one paid attention to the woman walking in through the glass doors, at least, not at first. She wasn't the usual Helix guest. No sleek luggage. No designer handbag. Just a soft tote bag hanging off one shoulder, a light linen shirt half tucked into grey pants, and a white trucker hat turned backward, her silver hair curling loosely underneath. But she walked like she'd been here before. Maye Musk was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the deep-boned exhaustion that comes after giving everything, her thoughts, her words, her presence, to hundreds of strangers in a lecture hall. Today's talk on nutrition and aging had run long, and she'd skipped lunch again. She just wanted a warm bath, a quiet room, and maybe a bowl of soup. Elon had texted her 2 hours ago, "Stay at Helix. I'll make sure they have a room for you." She hadn't asked for a suite. Just something simple. She never expected more than what she needed. The front desk gleamed under soft lighting, a long stretch of smooth black stone behind which 2 young staff members stood. Cassandra, all immaculate bun and crisp blazer. Troy, all confidence and watchfulness. Both turned slightly as she approached. Maye smiled gently. "Good afternoon. My son said he'd book me a room here tonight. I believe he called ahead." Troy's eyes narrowed just slightly. "And your name, Maye Musk." Pause. Cassandra blinked once, then nodded with recognition, but not warmth. "Of course," she said. "Just one moment, please." She tapped rapidly on the keyboard. Troy leaned in. Maye waited, glancing around the lobby. She liked observing people. But today, she just wanted to sit down. Cassandra looked back up. "I'm not seeing a reservation under your name or Mr. Musk's. Perhaps he used a different profile." "I don't think so. He said it would be personal, not corporate." Troy joined. "I'm afraid we're fully booked tonight, Mrs. Musk. The World Tech Leadership Summit has taken over all floors, even the overflow suites." "That's all right," Maye said. "I can wait while you sort it out." He probably thought it was handled. "Unfortunately," Cassandra replied, "we can't guarantee anything without a formal reservation." "I understand," Maye said, still calm. "Could I wait over there?" She motioned gently toward the lounge. Troy hesitated. "The executive lounge is reserved for checked-in guests." Cassandra added smoothly, "Company policy. Especially during high-security events." Maye's lips pressed together. "Of course." She turned and quietly found a bench along the edge of the lobby, just out of the way, just quiet enough to sit and think. She didn't look out of place. But she didn't quite fit either. Maye stood in the sunlit lobby of Helix Grand, the city's newest luxury landmark, feeling a strange mix of familiarity and distance. She had seen the plans for this place on Elon's laptop years ago. Back when it was still just an idea, a sketch across his desk at 3 a.m. Now it stood before her, glass, gold, and polished perfection. And somehow, she didn't quite belong. She approached the reception desk with her usual quiet grace. Her linen shirt was soft from years of wear, the cream tote bag slung over her shoulder filled with research notes and a half-eaten protein bar from the flight. There was no makeup, no jewelry, only the soft silver of her hair pulled into a loose bun and the faint creases of fatigue beneath her eyes. The 2 receptionists, Troy and Cassandra, noticed her immediately. Troy straightened his jacket, then blinked. "Wait. Is that?" Cassandra's smile barely shifted. "Yes. It's her." As Maye reached the desk, Cassandra stepped forward, voice syrup sweet. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Musk. Welcome to Helix Grand. How may we assist you today?" Maye offered a kind smile. "My son called ahead about a room. Elon Musk. I believe it was for tonight only. Just passing through after a university talk." Troy glanced at the screen, fingers tapping. Cassandra leaned over to double-check. They both paused, then exchanged a look. "I'm so sorry," Cassandra said, tilting her head. I'm not seeing any reservation under your name or Mr. Musk's. Are you sure the booking was for tonight? Maye kept her voice light. Yes. He called before boarding a meeting. Said he'd handle everything. Troy tried again. Could it be under another name? A corporate block, maybe? No, Maye replied. He tends to keep things personal with me. Cassandra clicked twice more, then shook her head. Unfortunately, Mrs. Musk, we are at full occupancy tonight. Every suite, every penthouse, even our overflow executive floors. I'm afraid there's not a single room available. Maye blinked. Not even one. We have a private symposium of global investors this weekend, Troy added quickly, almost defensively. They've booked out nearly the entire property. I don't need a penthouse, Maye said. Just somewhere to rest before my flight. Even our small City-View doubles are gone, Cassandra replied with a slight frown, as if trying to sound apologetic. It's highly unusual, but tonight is completely full. The words hung in the air like a closed door. Maye nodded slowly. Could I wait in the lounge, at least, while we sort it out? Troy hesitated. The executive lounge is reserved for checked-in guests only. Maye raised an eyebrow. Even if they're family. Cassandra's professional smile returned. As I'm sure you understand, even family members require advance booking, especially during high-security events. There it was, not rudeness. Something colder. Polite exclusion, wrapped in protocol. Maye nodded again, slower this time. So, to clarify, my son owns this hotel. You recognize me, and yet there is nowhere for me to sit. Cassandra's voice barely changed. We're simply following policy, Mrs. Musk. Troy added quickly, if Mr. Musk had contacted our concierge directly, perhaps things could have been pre-arranged. He said he did, Maye said, still calm. But perhaps it was missed. Another beat. Then Cassandra offered, there's a boutique hotel 5 blocks down, quiet, discreet. I could call ahead for you. Maye almost smiled. Thank you. But I'd prefer to wait here. Elon will call shortly. Cassandra's lips thinned. Of course. But if security asks, we'll need to explain the situation. A couple nearby glanced over. One of them whispered, is that really her? She doesn't look like she belongs here, the other murmured. Strange she didn't have a room. Maye heard them. She heard everything. And said nothing. She stepped aside from the desk, walking slowly to one of the side benches near the entrance, technically outside the guest area. She sat down, back straight, hands resting in her lap. The light from the glass ceiling hit her hair like silver fire. To anyone else, she looked like an elderly woman waiting for a cab. To those who knew, she was the woman who raised Elon Musk. But tonight, at Helix Grand, there was simply no room for her. Maye hadn't moved from her seat. The bench wasn't particularly comfortable, hard oak along a marble wall, barely within the bounds of the main lobby, but she didn't mind. She wasn't in a rush. Elon would call, or perhaps someone would sort it out. It wasn't the first time things had fallen through the cracks. She'd learned to be patient. But the quiet that had surrounded her 15 minutes ago was slowly shifting. The air had grown still. People noticed her. The security camera above the concierge desk angled slightly downward. A bellhop whispered to a front desk agent. A guest walking past slowed and frowned, then kept going. Cassandra appeared again, this time walking briskly and with her back straighter. At her side was a tall man in a deep navy suit with a hotel pin on his lapel, operation supervisor, likely. She gestured subtly toward Maye. The man nodded. Then he approached. Mrs. Musk, he said smoothly. Maye looked up. Yes. I'm Adrian. I help oversee operations here at Helix Grand. I understand there's been a bit of a mix-up with your reservation. She nodded. My son called ahead. I was told there would be a room, but apparently it didn't come through the system. He gave a polished smile. Yes. Unfortunately, our current occupancy is at 100% due to the World Technology Leadership Summit. Every suite, including overflow housing, has been booked for months. Even Mr. Musk's personal suite is in use by a visiting delegation. Maye's expression didn't change. I see. Adrian continued, while we would be honored to host you, protocol prevents us from displacing any current guests without formal override. I didn't ask for anyone to be displaced, Maye said simply. Of course. But we are also unable to accommodate non-registered individuals in secured guest areas, particularly during Summit Week. There it was. The subtext beneath the civility. Maye looked at him calmly. So I'm no longer permitted to sit here. He hesitated. It's not personal. We have guidelines to maintain confidentiality and comfort for our VIP clients. You know who I am, she said. Adrian didn't blink. Yes, And still. His smile was professional. We're simply following best practices. Maye let out a breath, not angry, just tired. Would you treat your own mother this way? Adrian's jaw tensed for half a second. This isn't about family. It's about protocol. I'm sure you understand. I understand perfectly, she replied. Behind them, a couple from Tokyo had stopped nearby. The woman looked over curiously, whispering to her partner in Japanese. The front desk was unusually quiet now. Then came the next step. A short, older man in a black uniform walked up behind Adrian. His badge read, Frank T. Security Team Leader. He had kind eyes. Slightly confused eyes. Everything all right, sir? Adrian turned. Yes. Mrs. Musk was just preparing to depart. Could you kindly accompany her to the main entrance and assist her with alternative arrangements if needed? Frank looked startled. She's not checked in. No, Adrian said. There was no confirmed booking. We've recommended Crescent Suites. 4 blocks east. Frank turned to Maye. Would you like me to help arrange transport? No, Maye said quietly. I'll wait a bit longer. Adrian's voice hardened just a little. With respect, we can't allow non-registered guests to remain seated in controlled access areas, especially during high alert periods. It's not personal. Of course not, Maye said, still seated. It never is. Frank hesitated. Please. The woman from Tokyo had now stopped entirely. Her husband took out his phone. Discreetly. Just in case. A young employee, barely 20, peeked from the corridor behind the front desk. She'd seen Maye before. On the cover of Vogue. On a TED Talk. In a nutrition book. And yet she didn't step forward. Because something stronger than admiration was in the air, the power of collective inaction. It was easier to obey process than to disrupt it. Frank leaned down slightly. If you'd prefer, we can escort you through the staff wing. Less public. Maye turned. Why? So I disappear more quietly. He froze. I'm not causing a disruption, she said. I'm not yelling. I'm not demanding anything. I'm sitting. But you're not authorized to remain here. Authorized, she repeated softly. To sit. Frank gave her a look that was almost apologetic. I don't want to embarrass you. You're not, she said. This place is doing that all on its own. At that moment, the revolving glass doors behind the concierge desk spun open. A gust of city wind swept through the lobby, lifting the hem of Maye's linen shirt ever so slightly. She didn't turn. But everyone else did. The man who stepped through was tall, dressed in sharp charcoal grey. No tie. Eyes tired. Hair tousled from wind and deadlines. Elon Musk. He scanned the lobby. And saw her. For a moment, nothing moved. Then slowly, silently, he walked toward her. A soft gasp rippled through the space. Frank straightened. Cassandra froze. Adrian blinked. Elon reached her. Didn't speak right away. Then, to Frank, quietly, that's my mother. The silence in the lobby deepened. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I'd like to know, Elon said calmly, why she was asked to leave the hotel I built. Adrian swallowed hard. There was no confirmed booking. We were following protocol, Elon finished for him. Yes. I heard. He turned to Cassandra. Do you know what's interesting about protocol? She didn't answer. It's only ever used against the people we don't expect. He looked back at May. She met his eyes. And smiled faintly. Not with triumph. But with relief. And something deeper. Elon Musk didn't plan to arrive early. But something had felt off in his last call with May. Her voice was calm. Too calm. He knew that tone, had heard it through missed birthdays, tough years, hospital visits. It was her shield. He stepped into the lobby unannounced. No entourage. Just him, windblown hair, tired eyes, a charcoal grey coat slung over one arm. He noticed her immediately. A single woman on a bench. Sitting straight, as always. No drama. No expression. But something was wrong. He saw Frank nearby. Cassandra stiffened the moment she saw Elon. Adrian, the supervisor, turned pale. Elon didn't speak for several seconds. He just walked toward her. And the room noticed. He reached her side. Looked down. No need to ask what happened. He turned to Frank and said quietly, "That's my mother." Silence. Not a single glass clinked. Cassandra opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Elon didn't raise his voice. "I'd like to know why she was asked to leave." Adrian stepped forward. There was no confirmed reservation. We followed protocol. Protocol, Elon echoed. Of course. He turned to Cassandra. Do you know what's interesting about protocol? She said nothing. It's almost never enforced for the people who look like they belong. No one answered. He looked at May. She looked up at him, not with pride, not with anger, but with something deeper. Relief. And love. The top floor of Helix Grand was silent, save for the quiet hum of filtered air and the occasional muted chime of the elevator arriving. Elon's private office looked out over the city, glass and skyline and ambition, but inside, the atmosphere was stripped of grandeur. May sat near the window, her tote bag placed carefully by her feet. Cassandra, Troy, Frank, and Adrian stood across from Elon's desk. No one was seated. No one spoke. Elon didn't look angry. Which, in many ways, made it worse. I built this hotel chain with one non-negotiable value, he said, finally breaking the silence. That every person who walks through our doors is seen, not sized. He looked at Cassandra. Today, my mother walked in. And you saw her. Cassandra lowered her eyes. You saw her clothes, her bag, her lack of reservation. You didn't see her dignity, or her history, or her humanity. Troy cleared his throat. Sir, we had no idea she was Maye Musk. Elon finished. A former model. A best-selling author. A nutrition scientist with 2 master's degrees. The woman who raised 3 children alone, while sleeping on floors and eating from plastic containers to save money. He turned to Frank. The woman who once lived in a rent-controlled apartment in Toronto and still took in interns who had nowhere else to go. Frank looked down. I was following protocol. May finally spoke. Her voice was soft, but firm. That's the heart of the problem. Everyone turned. She continued, you followed the rules. But rules without empathy become tools of exclusion. Protocol becomes permission to ignore discomfort. To retreat behind a desk instead of stepping toward a person. Adrian looked stricken. We didn't mean to offend. I wasn't offended, May interrupted. I was erased. Quietly. With perfect manners. She paused. And that's far more dangerous. Silence settled again. Elon leaned forward. No one's being fired today. Troy exhaled audibly. Cassandra blinked in surprise. Because firing you, Elon continued, would be easy. But that wouldn't solve the problem. It wouldn't change the culture. He looked at each of them. You're going to help fix what you helped reveal. Frank straightened. Adrian cleared his throat. "Sir, we're launching a full retraining across all Helix properties. A new framework around hospitality and inclusion. It starts here. With you." Maye nodded. "And before that begins, I'd like each of you to spend one day with me. Not in a conference room. On the ground. Where hospitality isn't served on silver trays, but with plastic cutlery and compassion." Troy frowned slightly. "Where?" Maye smiled gently. "A nutrition clinic in East LA. A teen mother's shelter in Detroit. A classroom with autistic children who don't speak until they paint." Cassandra looked at her. Something shifted behind her eyes. "I'm not here to shame you," Maye said. "I'm here to show you what hospitality really looks like. What dignity sounds like when no one's watching." Elon leaned back in his chair. "This isn't about fixing a PR issue," he said. "It's about becoming the company we thought we already were." No one argued. Because for once, there was nothing left to say. 3 months later, the lobby of Helix Grand was different. It looked the same, polished floors, fresh orchids, ambient light, but the energy had shifted. It was quieter, warmer. Like the building had learned to breathe at a different pace. Troy stood by the door, greeting a guest in worn canvas shoes and a patched coat. He offered the same smile he gave diplomats and celebrities. No distinction. Just welcome. The guest, an elderly man with trembling hands, was there for an interview through the Helix Dignity internship program. He'd spent the last decade homeless. Today, he wore a shirt he'd ironed 3 times. Just in case. Troy guided him toward a waiting area with grace, then turned to check the time. Cassandra was due to begin the next inclusion training session in 10 minutes. She emerged from the conference room, clipboard in hand, glasses perched on her nose. A small boy in a wheelchair followed her, escorted by his older sister, today's youth guest volunteers. Cassandra knelt to speak at his level. "Would you like to see the kitchens? Chef Marco is waiting." He nodded shyly. She smiled, one that wasn't rehearsed, wasn't pasted on. It was real. Across the room, Maye watched from a chair near the elevator. She wore the same linen shirt. The same white trucker hat. A different tote bag, this one embroidered by a girl she mentored. Frank walked by and tipped his cap slightly. He now led Helix's internal ethics and inclusion committee. Every new security officer trained under him. Maye stood, stretched gently, and smiled to herself. Not because everything was perfect, but because something had changed. And because people had chosen to make it so. The new brass plaque at the entrance of Helix Grand was simple. No gold flourishes. No ornate font. Just a message, etched into brushed metal: true luxury is treating every human being with dignity. Underneath, a quote Maye had chosen herself: "We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike." Maya Angelou, she stood beside it now, hands tucked in her pockets. A young staffer approached, barely 20, nervous. He looked at her, then at the plaque, then back. "Excuse me, were you really the guest they almost turned away?" Maye smiled. "Yes. And it was the best thing that ever happened to this place." The boy blinked. "Why?" "Because it taught us to stop performing hospitality," she said. "And start practicing it." He nodded, thoughtful. She walked outside, down the steps, into the afternoon sun. A street artist nearby was painting watercolor postcards for tourists. Maye stopped, knelt slightly, and complimented his brush control. He blinked, then smiled. Then they talked, quietly, as the city moved around them. Inside, Elon watched from the upper balcony, leaning against the glass. He didn't interrupt. Because he knew. The woman in the trucker hat had never needed recognition to be powerful. She'd always known how to change the world, by seeing what others overlooked. And helping them see it too.